Hello, I'm Jody, and this is Ollie.
And I'm Mark, and this is Nala, and welcome to Worship at First Church.
Please join us in saying,
Life is a gift for which we are grateful. We gather in community to celebrate the glories and the mysteries of this great gift.
I have behind me a poster that I'm particularly fond of, showing the extraordinary variety of butterflies and moths. I find it amazing that these creatures should be so different from each other, yet they all undergo the same identical stages of metamorphosis from a caterpillar into a chrysalis or cocoon, from which they emerge after a time as a moth or a butterfly. It's the same creature it was before, but now it has a splendor and a power of flight that seem miraculous after the darkness and solitude of the prison-like cocoon. Jonah's astonishment after he was belched up by the fish is surely nothing compared with the astonishment of a butterfly as it flaps its wings for the first time. I like to think that the stories we tell about rebirth or resurrection express a wisdom about our common experience of human life. In one way, we are like butterflies. There are times in our lives when the walls of the tomb seem to be closing around us, the light grows dim, and we feel alone and somehow less than what we always dreamed of being. This dark interval has to be endured one way or another, even though it seems like it will never end. Then one day we change, or the world changes, or something that held us lets us go, and we become that beautiful, whole, free being we were always destined to become, because the promise of that wholeness was in our nature from the beginning. But in another way, we are not like butterflies. Our metamorphosis is not a one-time event. There is no completed or perfected form of a human life, because there is no final release from the past we are carrying, or from the person we have become. Somewhere deep in our nature, there is a promise that out of our brokenness we can be made whole, but the promise of that wholeness is not one that is fulfilled once and for all. We tell ourselves stories in order to live, and perhaps our stories of rebirth and metamorphosis going back thousands of years from the Odyssey to Shakespeare and Harry Potter help us to reimagine our lives and to live them more completely. I don't know if human beings are the only species gifted with a power of imagination. It would be an odd thing if we were. But if humanity lacked this power to reimagine the world and ourselves, if we could not tell each other stories about a world restored by love or a damaged life made whole again, we would be poor creatures indeed, for we would be trapped in the only world we know.
Breathe in and breathe out. There'll always be that moment of doubt. We'll feel as if we're broken, but with a light, life reveals a new route. So we move and we try. Despite the doubt that could grow inside, yes, we all feel broken in some way, but friends, we'll rise. From the ash and from the seas, from behind a stone, from beneath autumn leaves, from the bottom of a barrel, we'll sprout out like trees that have their roots, that feel the breeze. And yes, we'll rise, and we'll rise again. For we have each other, a community of family, a community of dear friends. So breathe in and breathe out. There'll always be that moment of doubt.
Praise After the Earthquake in Haiti by Alison Luterman. The thin sound of singing floated up from under the building, which was pancaked on its cheap foundation. Port-au-Prince, hell's aftermath. Bodies laid out in rows covered by white cloth, loaves of death bread for spirits to eat. 100,000 buried overnight in hastily dug ditches because of the heat, and the smell. So no one believed she was really alive, this girl trapped under rubble for almost 2 weeks, until a worker heard tunes issuing from twisted rebar and stopped, petrified in disbelief. She was still singing when they pulled her out, skinny as the edge of a sickle moon. I watched on TV from my living room as Darlene Etienne, age 16, was drawn forth from her living tomb, caroling hymns in Creole. How many mornings have I struggled to hush the voice in my brain saying, "You will never find your place in this world"? How many years wrestled the weight of imaginary bricks that would pin me paralyzed to my bed? But this girl sang herself through the closed door of the grave, and it opened, and she rose. A miracle. Praise the light. Praise how I hear her voice deep in my own heart now, a thin soprano thread pulsing with longing.
Oh, walk together, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, children, don't you get weary. There's a great camp meeting in the promised land. Oh, walk together, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, children, don't you get weary. There's a great camp meeting in the promised land. Gonna walk and never tire. Oh, walk and never tire. Oh, walk and never tire. There's a great camp meeting in the promised land. Oh, sing together, children, don't you get weary. Sing together, children, don't you get weary. Sing together, children, don't you get weary. There's a great camp meeting in the promised land. Gonna sing and never tire. Oh, sing and never tire. Oh, sing and never tire. There's a great camp meeting in the promised land. Oh, shout together, children, don't you get weary. Shout together, children, don't you get weary. Shout together, children, don't you get weary. There's a great camp meeting in the promised land. Gonna shout and never tire. Oh, shout and never tire. Oh, shout and never tire. There's a great camp meeting in the promised land. Oh, walk together, children, don't you get weary. Sing together, children, don't you get weary. Shout together, children, don't you get weary. There's a great camp meeting, great camp meeting, great camp meeting in the promised land.
As many of you know, we have 3 kids, ages 12, 9, and 4, and we currently have the dubious distinction of being involved in 3 different schools and trying to make sense of the homeschooling or the virtual assistant teaching to a whole band of heroic teachers, trying to reinvent, refocus, and repackage their holy and vital work on the fly. I'm amazed at the speed and grace and commitment with which our educators have made these shifts, often while caring for their own kids and riding the waves of parent feelings and the effusive expressions of those feelings. I see you and I appreciate you, dear educators. Our boys are the 2 older ones, and so their schoolwork is pretty extensive, especially in this new phase, and we've worked hard to get them into a rhythm and follow the guidance of their teachers. And Aaliyah, our 4-year-old, we realized what she needs right now is not more online time, not virtual preschool, but more time with us, more time in the garden, more time cooking and reading, doing arts, doing crafts. Her school is amazing, and they are working hard too to meet this moment and transform all that they do. And we look forward to one day being back there, hopefully, possibly. But for now, more crafts, more projects with the littlest Jablonski. And so it was, with Easter approaching, that I got us a bunch of white eggs. And I kept them in the fridge for a while so that they would peel perfectly when boiled, and when they were ready, Aaliyah and I set to decorating them. She was so excited to dunk the eggs in the color, and I was so committed to this new plan of early childhood education that I was deep in it with her, and we were talking about volume and displacement and dyes and color mixing and all sorts of things. She was very excited, especially after we let them cool. She kept asking when we could have one. And I was very happy to see her enthusiasm because her protein intake is a little spotty. So anytime she starts to love a source of protein, I am extra appreciative. And so the eggs were ready, and with wide, excited eyes, she asked, "What's going to be inside?" And I said, "Well, egg." And she frowned like I was crazy or from another planet, only just now arriving at Easter. "No, Daddy." And we opened the egg, and she frowned. "Where's the candy?" she said. This was little more than a week ago. "Well, the candy isn't until Easter," I said. And I held her as she cried, betrayed by the egg that she had put so much work into, making it colorful and beautiful, assuming that some alchemy was underway to transform the simple egg into delicious chocolate or jelly beans. As she cried, I felt not just her suffering, betrayed by the subpar transformation of this egg into just yet another form of egg. But as she cried and as I soothed her, I thought of this moment, of the vastness of this suffering, of the challenge of this time. I thought of the poem that we just heard. I love the central image of the poem, the thin sound of singing floating up from under the building, pancaked on its cheap foundation, hell's aftermath, no one believing she was alive, this girl trapped under rubble for 2 weeks until they hear the tunes issuing from the twisted rebar, and still she was singing when they pulled her out, skinny as the edge of a sickle moon. Praise how I hear her voice deep in my own heart now, a thin soprano thread pulsing with longing. This image, this poem, this girl has been with me in this strange, exceptional moment we are facing. Because there is just so much suffering right now. Both in the wider world, of course, so much death, so many sick, so much stress. So many of us are at the edge of our coping or past it. And there are still many weeks to go. And so this Easter, we look at the story of Jesus, the person of Jesus and his remarkable rising. Because I think his rising has a lot to teach us. But for me, the truly remarkable thing about his rising is not his resurrection. As you may remember, Unitarian Universalism cherishes and celebrates the power and beauty of your individual search for truth and meaning. So we hold many beliefs about Jesus. And so holidays always bring out the trickiness of our theological diversity, and Easter especially, because of course we hold the central idea for many Christian folks today is that Jesus rose from the dead. Christos anesti, the Orthodox will proclaim, he is risen. Indeed, he is risen. And I'm not here to debate that. Again, there is some singular, beautiful truth about Jesus, which is yours and yours alone. We should discuss it and dig into it. Sharing our truth open-heartedly can only deepen and expand our own, no matter how divergent with other truths. But for me, especially today, it is the hundreds, the thousands of other little resurrections of Jesus that I want to lift up. That he rose over and over again, day after day, and he got back to work. He rose with the specter of Rome breathing down his neck. He rose with the religious establishment weary of his challenging teachings and his anti-institutional leanings. He rose day after day in hard times with an uncertain future, and he did the work before him. And that has been helpful to me these days. Sometimes it can feel like an act of will to rise, but we do. We rise over and over to meet this moment, to meet these days. We rise to see what we can do this day to make it through, to help our neighbors, to help our families. We rise to see what we can do to remain our best selves, grounded and clear, resilient and creative. We rise just like Jesus, day after day, to heal the sick, to teach anyone with ears to listen, to work for the cause of love and justice, freedom and peace. We rise. This is from Still I Rise by Maya Angelou. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me like the very dirt, but still like dust I rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? 'Cause I walk like I've got oil wells pumping in my living room, just like moons, like suns, with the certainty of tides, just like hope springing high, still I'll rise. Did you want to see me broken, bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries? You may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes, you may kill me with your hatefulness, but still like air I'll rise. Out of the huts of history's shame I rise. Up from a past rooted in pain I rise. I'm a black ocean leaping and wide, welling and swelling, I bear the tide. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise. Into a daybreak that's wondrously clear, I rise. Bringing the gifts my ancestors gave, I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise, I rise, I rise. Dear First Church, this Easter may we celebrate the resilience, the creativity, the commitment, and the compassion of Jesus. May we seek to emulate him and all of our teachers in this challenging time. May we find strength in their example. May we find nourishment in their wisdom. And may we rise again and again and again. Amen.